Greetings and welcome to Georgian Crossroads. This is Byrne Power, your host du jour. And today what we're going to do is take a little trip, first of two parts. We're going to start in Tbilisi and drive the back roads all the way to the cave city of Vardzia. And I think you're going to find this really very interesting. So today all we're going to do is drive from here to Vardzia. Okay, well, here I am on a nice rainy day. It's not raining too hard. By Alaskan standards, it's hardly raining at all. It's just a gentle mist. But it's not supposed to rain all day. And I'm about to take off at about 7:30 in the morning through Tbilisi, which I'm not going to show you my driving through there. But then we're going to go out to through Tsunda. Yes, that sound is part of it. And I'm going to take the back roads to Vardzia rather than the main road, which goes north of Tbilisi through Maisuradzes and Gori and other places. So, come along with me. We're driving now up to Tsunda, which is kind of a getaway, a little city above the Vake and Bagebi sections of Tbilisi. And we're not going to stop and look, although it's got kind of an interesting mood, a very European mood up there. Evidently it was the Soviet hideaway. But I think it's interesting just driving up. Of course, it's still raining. But as we look off, we're in the back end of Tbilisi, a place that a lot of people don't get to. And you can really see how many Soviet-era high-rises there are here. Plus, you'll see some of these pyramids and other things that are of more recent manufacture. But you can see we're getting pretty high up. And we will remain at this level or higher for the rest of the trip, which is, I'm guessing, around 2,500 to 3,000 feet in dear old U.S. standard measurements. Probably about 800 or so meters high. So we're at the tail end of Tsunda. I haven't shown you the downtown. Maybe I'll save that for another video. And just give you a little sense of driving out of that town. And lo and behold, or should I say there's no beholding going on at all, because we entered a cloud, thus we are in the fog. And it's going to be foggy. What's interesting about this trip out of town, I really prefer going this way to Vardzia than I do taking the main route that goes through Maisuradzes and Gori. Because well, for one thing, where's the traffic? Not much. And it's a nice autumnal day. And yeah, we do have fog, but it's not going to stay with us that long. Fog and rain. But hey, I'm coming from Alaska, so for me this is totally normal. And as we continue on, again, there's not much traffic here, and that's what makes it kind of cool. Because on the other route, oh my goodness, is there a lot of traffic. Especially when you come to the place where the highway ends and you're back on these kind of two-lane roads for a while, it just becomes a mess. Whereas this way, I don't know, the freedom of the open road. So I stopped and looked here for a moment. As it started to clear up a bit, you could see across this valley, well, you could see if my lens wasn't covered in drops, it starts to open up a bit and you get more of a sense of where we are. I stopped just for this road. It's a small road that goes to somewhere in the valley, but I love that sense of it's inviting you to something. But what? Well, snow is what I eventually found. Driving through fog. Fresh snow. First snow of the season. We're climbing up to 72 something, I believe. Maybe even higher. We'll see. It's kind of crazy. Welcome to Georgia. Stopped a little further down the road and there was a lake. I believe I'm saying it right. I may be getting my syllables mixed up, but it was Parvanasi. It's either that or Parnavasi. But I'm just remembering it right now. And then there's a river that flows from it. And as I stopped here, you can still see the flakes of snow. I looked up, and lo and behold, it started to clear already. You can see the lake in the distance. What a beautiful day it was starting to turn into. And this is what the back roads, heading towards the Armenian border. I'm going towards both Armenia and Turkey. Well, don't tell them that. On this trip, right now it's more in the direction of Armenia, which is not very far away, but it's totally locked down because of the virus. But check out these skies and, again, the open roads, lots of cows and sheep. There was a small town that I passed that was just so dark and gray, it beckoned me, but the rain, I just felt like maybe another time. It was called Salka, and evidently there's a remnant of an ancient Greek population there, not recent Greeks at all, but Pontic Greeks. And again, looking at another little lake. And as I look down, what do I see? But there's a shepherd with his sheep down below this. Now, the wind was howling here, and all my sound was ruined because it was just so fierce. But I loved it. It was great to get out of the city. And I kept getting reminded of different places I had been. And this almost struck me as being like the plains of Colorado. Had that kind of feel. Except different, of course. And one of the big differences is off in the distance you see these kind of rounded snow-capped mounds. We'll see a really good one coming up here. There's the shepherd down below me with his sheep and dogs. Oh, I ran into some sheep dogs that crossed a long meadow in 3 seconds chasing another dog. A bit unnerving, but that's just... I don't worry about bears or anything here, but I do wonder about sheepdogs. Anyway, we're in the town of Nino Tsuminda, which means Saint Nino, who is the patron saint of Georgia. She was not the patron saint, but she is the one who brought Christianity to Georgia. We're following a hay truck here that all that hay almost fell over at one point, and I had to get him out. But meanwhile, I'm looking up, and there's a stork nest, and there were quite a few of them on this one street. Stork nests on top of light posts. You see this in other countries too, but unfortunately I couldn't get a stop to get a good view of them. Meanwhile, however, I did get kind of lost and stuck getting out of the town because the roads had gotten so bad. I tried to get through a different way. I thought the road was going not this direction, but another direction. I said, this can't possibly be the road. And I ended up in a small village of Armenians, and I asked in Georgian, which is kind of like, if you could help me, please. And they just looked at me like, I said, "Do you speak English?" They looked at me like they didn't understand a word I was saying, and I said, "I better get out of this village." It was, right on the border. Then I got stuck in this traffic, and evidently the Georgian highway construction crews don't know anything about how to use flagmen and radios, because people are just making their way through. Occasionally a guy will walk through with a sign that says go, but it's just like really random. And if you see, there's this black little car up there, and they've actually, what he's driving on is the asphalt that's been churned up by the highway construction equipment, and literally they will not be able to get much further, but they're going to creep along. And there were huge semi-trucks stuck in this stuff. We were there for like a half hour just waiting for this to move. Just crazy. Huge trucks had to back up. Finally, I arrived at Kritsvisi, I think I'm saying it right. And there's this fortress there that I did not explore yet. I will save that for another trip. This massive fortress on a hill that you can evidently go visit. And sorry for the reflection in the window, but I'm just descending into the valley. Here's a better view of it. I thought about driving up there, and then these dogs kind of looked at me and said, "Hey, have you got anything for me?" So I went into the nearest store. I was going to buy something anyway, something to drink. And I bought a couple of pieces of hot dogs and made some friends. Or you could buy individual like little sausages. And I bought a couple and ate a little bit, but fed most of them to these two dogs. And they had an awful lot of character. I was just really impressed by these two strange little dogs. The one bigger than the other. Let me show you a picture of their faces here. They're just pretty amazing. How is that for character in the face of a dog? I just think that is just, he's looking at you like he's got all these thoughts. You can't quite penetrate what they are, but they certainly are fascinating. So now we're driving through Kritsvisi and on our way out to Mogwi, which is where, well, actually not quite to Mogwi, another little area called Tsunda, and I'm going to the Guesthouse Tsunda, and I will meet Merab, is the man who has the guest house. Meanwhile, I did get to the guest house, but then I took off. They told me that don't go there this afternoon, go in the morning, because it's going to take you quite a while to walk through it. And that is indeed Vardzia there. And I am looking at it from an overlook. And it crosses, to get to it, you have to cross the Mitkavari River. Now, this is the very same Mitkavari River that goes through Tbilisi. Little animals seem to find me. This poor little animal, I stopped to take a photo, and she's looking at me. Oh, kind of breaks your heart. But that of course, is how they beg for food. And of course, I threw her a little something. And then I crossed the Mitkavari. This is the Mitkavari River, very far away from Tbilisi. And eventually, in fact, on the other side of the border, it starts in Turkey. It's called the Kura. And the Russians call it the Kura. And sometimes you'll see books that call it the Kura, like guidebooks. I have one that calls it the Kura. But in fact, the Georgians call it the Mitkavari. And it goes all the way to, I think, Baku in Azerbaijan. Now, I'd stopped at this spot. Again, I'm kind of circling around Vardzia. I don't really want to visit it because you'll see when we get there, it's a long trek. But I saw these holes and caves. Evidently, there's a monk who lives up there. And I stopped, crossed the river on a footbridge, which I'll show you in a minute, and checked it up. I was thinking of going up there, but I thought, no, I'm just kind of surveying the scene, and I'm going to do the whole Vardzia thing the next day. So this is crossing the river. Check out this bridge. It is like absolutely funky, but it was safe. And that just is part of it. Then there is another part here, the bigger part of the river is crossed on this bridge, which is, a little bit better constructed with some actual steel in there. But there were several suspension bridges along the way that tempted me to cross them. But of course I couldn't do that. Especially, the problem is you're driving along the road, especially on the way back. You don't want to start doing new things. But and suddenly you see this thing out of the corner of your eye, and you want to stop, but you're going, a certain speed, and you don't want to lose speed, especially if you got trucks behind you. Fortunately, all the way there, except when I got to the place where they were working on the road, there were no trucks hardly on that one long stretch coming out of Tbilisi. And there's no trucks here, of course. So it's a very quiet valley. I really thought this valley was special because not too hot in the summer, not too cold. The occasional snow that melted quickly in the winter. To me, it was a pretty perfect environment. And if you look around, you'll start to see more caves and holes all over this valley. It reminded me a bit of Utah, a bit of some sections of Arizona, but not with the heat. And we were also, like I say, we're probably about 3,000 feet up at this point. At the back end of this valley, there was a small Islamic village, and I heard the muezzin call just as I was leaving there. But one of the things that fascinates me in Georgia is all of the houses and architecture that's in states of decay. And so I decided to go look at this one. This was actually across from the viewpoint where I could look into Vardzia, and I showed you that a little earlier. But I stopped on the way out and said, yeah, let's walk up these stairs. And I thought about it. Why is there a house there? Beautiful view. Why are there stairs going up to it like this? Obviously, this was not supposed to be a simple house. And why is it in total disrepair and ruin? In other words, I mean, it just seemed like a small house to have all those stairs. Maybe it was some official Soviet structure. Hard to tell. But now it was just completely ruined. Now, there's another state I would sometimes find buildings in, which is even more puzzling. It's the building that's not finished. But the next two are unfinished, or one of them is unfinished. And this is a little further up in the hills. Obviously, never, all that was built was, I don't know, the lower part. It's just a walled enclosure with a box. And it was never finished. Then there's another one over here. Now that looks like it had been finished and fallen apart, but then this one looks like it was never finished either. It's like someone had put in the foundation. Quite an interesting looking building, but never finished. Well, it's time to go home, if the cows let me. The cows walk around like they own the roads. They don't really care. They don't really move. They're kind of cool. The interesting thing about these cows is they're literally on a massive cliff, like just a little bit beyond what I'm driving is a massive cliff that goes straight down to the Mitgavari River. And these cows sometimes hang out on the edge of it. They don't care. They're just, well, they're cows. They haven't got, like, there's 4 cows there, maybe one brain between them. And this is the little guest house I was staying in, Guesthouse Tsunda. And really lovely place. Rustic, though. One of the things I liked about it was that it was so rustic. You couldn't stay here for weeks on edge because I couldn't find a shower. And it did have I suppose you could just use the hose, just clean yourself that way. It did have, of course, a very primitive outhouse. But it was just such a nice place to be, so quiet. There was a little lake down at the bottom of the hill. I remember just sitting there, and there was a willow tree yellowing with the autumn, and I just felt like, what a beautiful little taste of heaven. And even better was my host, the Maisuradzes. I mean, the reason I chose this place, because when I saw the Airbnb, you just saw these people with panduris and other instruments sitting there. I'm like, oh, if I go here, I'll actually maybe get a chance to hear music. Now, the guest house is their little, like I said, it's a very rustic guest house. So if you're looking for plush accommodations, stay away. But if you want the real Georgian experience, go there, and they'll invite you up the hill. And it really is a journey to get to their house. They say just a 5-minute walk. It's more like a 10-minute walk. And it's a 10-minute walk through some terrain. You'll need some help to find your way through. And then you go to they live in the village of Tsunda, which is up on the hill. And then they will serve you a beautiful dinner of everything comes from, with the exception of the wheat flour and some other stuff which comes from away. Everything else, it comes from either them or nearby. And literally I wish I had taken videos of all of the stuff in their yards that they were growing. It was like a supermarket. There was peppers, and there was potatoes and beans and corn and just so much stuff. And then they had, quince fruit trees and peach trees and apple trees and walnut trees. And it was just, and they were growing rabbits, and they had chickens. And I thought, like, good grief, these people don't need to go to the supermarket every week, because they have everything they need here. And that's one interesting thing about Georgia, is Georgia may get impoverished. And this year's pandemic is hitting them hard, but they don't starve because Georgia is such a productive land. And even this valley is just so productive. And of course they grow their own grapes and have their own wine because they're Georgians. That's how you can tell who a Georgian is. And it was great wine. And Merab and Maka and Khatia were all just wonderful hosts. There were other members of their family who were no longer living there, a couple of a daughter and a son. But I highly recommend visiting them. So, let's hear them sing a little bit. And this is Maka, the mother. She's singing. And then I'll come back to you and talk to you in just a moment. And great family. I plan on visiting them again because what a wonderful experience. And if you come to Georgia, you should visit them too. And they really need it. I was the only guest this entire year for them, at least up to this point. It probably will be, because of the virus. And fortunately, they are surviving. Like I say, the supermarket is right outside their door, and I was happy to be their guest. And well, anyway, Let's hear them sing, or at least Maka sing. Well, thanks for coming along today, and thanks to the Maisuradzes family for hosting me out in their guest house, which I really recommend that you locate on Airbnb. In fact, I'll put a link down below so that you can find that. Well, there are many more subjects to cover, and I hope that when normal travel, whatever that is, resumes, that you will come to Georgia, visit Tbilisi, and make sure you get out to the caves of Vardzia. It is one of the most important things. Don't go to Batumi. Go to Vardzia. It's a better city on the wall, a majestic place to visit. Well, I will see you again soon, as the Georgians say, Droebit. Just for a while, temporarily. We'll see you later.
Seshe